family policy that you might currently need support with. So I'm here first and foremost just to introduce myself so you can put a face to my name. And then this afternoon, I will send a follow-up email to each of you to describe the initiative in a little bit more detail and give you a way to sign up to meet with me directly if you would like to. So for those of you who receive it, I will also ask you to forward it to others who do work related to children and family issues in Multnomah County. And if you do choose to respond, I will have a short meeting with you to learn about the child and family policy challenges that you're currently focused on and where you think research would be helpful to support your work. And then based on that, I'll create a tailored research brief, share it with you, and give you an opportunity to walk through it together and think about how it might apply to your work. Important note, all of this is completely free. Our work is funded by the William T. Grant Foundation, which shares our commitment to strengthening connections between research and policy. So I'm happy to take any questions about how it works and what kind of topics we might cover and so on, either now or via email as I follow up after the meeting. Thank you so much for your time.
Next, we have Elena Seven. Elena, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Elena Seven. I live in Portland. I'm commenting on the BLM Western Oregon Resource Management Plan, and I'd like to say thank you to Chair Pedersen for opposing the Trump administration's proposed revision. I've lived in cities since I was 18, and only since coming to this area have I realized what an amazing gift the forests of Oregon are. And a big part of the reason I live here is these old growth forests and our wild spaces. These places give us quiet from all our human noises. No motors, no car stereos, no leaf blowers, no vacuums, no chainsaws. And when I'm in these spaces, I usually think a lot about all the other life that needs to live here too, that also needs these big, wild, old trees and ecosystems. I hike in the places that the BLM plan revisions will end up clear cutting. I birdwatch and I travel. I stay in small towns and I spend my money in these areas. And so do people from all over the county, the state, and the world. So there is economic backbone in these old growth forests without the use of any timber at all. Old growth forests and even late stage mixed forests are not truly renewable. When they're gone, they will not realistically be coming back, and all the wildlife that lives there will not be coming back. We've really entered a time where we need to think about what ends up being a permanent loss and how these losses affect humanity's ability to live on this planet. And I very much urge our commissioners to take up the torch of caring for this landscape. The last of our healthy wild intact spaces reduces the ill effects of climate change. That includes dense cities and suburbs, even if our county itself only has a small amount of these forests. Maybe it seems far removed from what we're busy with in Multnomah County, but it really is not. It's essential to a healthy planet that we all have to live on. And what we decide now can change everything. So I urge you to please speak against the BLM plan for clear-cutting logging. Please strengthen protections in our essential riparian zones. Please support the roadless rule, and please always work as much as possible with Indigenous tribes. Please help this state protect our wild forests from increased BLM sanctioned logging. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Addie Smith. Addie, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning. My name is Addie Smith. Today is August 20th, 2026. I'm speaking before the Multnomah County Commissioners. First, I want to follow up on statements made by Anna Asistani. Last week, she touched on a pattern of poor decision-making by these county commissioners. She informed us that they waste taxpayer monies on useless and very expensive and unbudgeted hiring practices, wherein these commissioners hire unqualified, inexperienced people for very high-paying positions within the county and end up repeating that pattern several times per year for years. These commissioners, as well as the Portland Housing Bureau and Home Forward, have done that with Michael Bonapore, Aaron Grayheck, Wade Sadler, Rachel Pearl, and more. I want the people to hear just how expensive these commissioners have made it to hire people who can't perform the duties and responsibilities of the job. In one instance, they wasted $36,000 in a 3-month search, and they hired someone with no experience. In another instance, they wasted $108,000 in a 9-month search, and they hired someone again with no prior experience. I want to know who that person is that owns a recruitment firm being paid $144,000 for an employment search that resulted in the commissioners completely overlooking and not even contacting qualified applicants. They could have found the people they ended up hiring at their local coffee shop, and who knows that this isn't where these people came from. Who vetted the people selected for these positions other than these commissioners? The candidates these commissioners continue to hire for these very high-paying positions lack knowledge of the position, training, prior experience, qualifications, or anything. What these commissioners are hiring are minions, people who will appreciate the salary and do exactly as they're told when they're told to do it. They aren't hired to actually perform the duties and responsibilities of their jobs, but hired to do what these commissioners and others are telling them to do. For example, when it comes to operations and what the money in the budget will be spent on. Portland Housing Bureau hired Michael Bonacore, and he was paid $300,000 a year for 4 years to do nothing. He could have developed and implemented a rental assistance division wherein the city could have immediately provided rental assistance for the people of Portland, but he didn't. Michael Bonacore has no college degree and absolutely no experience in housing. He sat at Home Forward for over 20 years, then left, and they hired him back recently for $300,000, and he's still only doing as he's told. Meanwhile, the board, and specifically Matthew Gephardt, who was appointed to the board, told me, with over 30 years of experience in housing, that I wouldn't be appointed to anything, although I've never even asked. These Multnomah County Commissioners, Home Forward, Portland City Council, and Portland Housing Bureau want minions. They want to control where the money resides. They want to control how the money is spent. They want to control where the money will go. Last week, I asked these commissioners where was the $5 million they received from the city of Portland. I have yet to receive a response showing me where that money is. These commissioners are also more than happy to give a billionaire millions of dollars. They obviously don't care who's going to fill the stadium. If you can't go to work because you don't have housing, if you can't eat because you don't have housing, if you can't go to work to pay for tickets to Trailblazers and Fire games because you don't have housing, that's not their concern. Oregon is also third in the nation in unemployment. Third in the nation in unemployment. Thank you.
Next, we have Ann Casper. Ann, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning. My name is Ann Casper, and I'm a student at the University of Oregon. Very nice to see you all. We had a professional quality mental health forum last week, televised, and we have 10 questions that the audience asked. Now, they don't reflect necessarily what I think, but what the community in mental health think. I want to remind you, we have zero funding to do this. Mental health advocacy is not funded in Portland, and unfortunately, we don't have organizations speaking for us, but we're coming together. 1 in 5 persons will encounter a mental health issue, and we will get that mental health vote together, and we remember who will answer us and who will not. We received written answers from Shannon Singleton, and we've received no answers yet from Brim Edwards. All candidates were invited to come, and Sharon Myron did show up. We have her answers, and then I also sent the questions to Shannon Singleton and Julia Brim Edwards, the candidates, and Singleton has sent in her answers. Unfortunately, we haven't seen Brim Edwards' answers yet. We're waiting for those. And I will send the questions also to Commissioner Moyer, Commissioner Jones, who we'd like to know what you think. I will read as many questions as I can get in 3 minutes. Not sure we can, but this is what the community is asking for. Upon being elected, what actions are you planning on taking to assure that our council, the Multnomah County Behavioral Health Council, will have more interaction with departments we were established to provide words of advisement to and ensure that our group is seen and heard? The second one is, should you become chair, what efforts would you make to remedy the commitments made and broken to the peer community and restore funding of peer-delivered services? Please clarify which members you value more, those working towards recovery and resilience, or those who enjoy a good basketball game. Number 4, how important are psychiatric rehabilitation programs to the mental health system of care, in your opinion? Do the county commissioners have a clear understanding of what clubhouse programs are and how they fit into the larger system of care? How do you work with people who are horrifically against us? They use their insults to stave off their own fear, basically stigmatizing the entire mental health community. And how do you reach those people to work with them on mental health policy? What do you suggest that the chair do to make sure that mental health, addictions, and houses and services receive the same attention at the county? Given the mindset that mental health is served better by other agencies, as chair, how do you envision a united front on education, information, and development? Thank you very much. And I hope you have a good day. And we would like those answers from all of you, and especially Julie Remembers. Thank you.
Next, we have Nathan Ong Norris. Nathan, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair. My name is Nathan Ong Norris, and I am running for Multnomah County Commissioner in District 2. In 2021, our community suffered a heat dome event, which claimed the lives of 69 residents of Multnomah County. Temperatures climbed to all-time highs and stayed there for days. The climate is harsher and more dangerous. We know that the actions of fossil fuel companies like ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, and BP have exacerbated climate change and externalized the corresponding risks and hazards onto us, the working class. Some of our neighbors who died in 2021 had air conditioners in their homes that they did not turn on because of fear of the cost of electricity. Our electricity is expensive because the ratepayers of this county support the profits of PGE, a company that also utilizes fossil fuels and leaves us to deal with the consequences. These fossil fuel companies have gotten rich off exploiting our resources, extorting our people, and lying to our faces about the causes and harms of climate change. What can we do about this? In this case, the county has rightfully filed a lawsuit against the companies. Multnomah County is pursuing damages for the human suffering, for the costs to repair county property and infrastructure that was damaged in the heat. From the lawsuit, the severity of the heat dome caused the county to expend enormous financial and human resources that it otherwise would not have, and thus added crushing economic burden upon the county in tandem with the devastating human toll exacted upon its residents. The event in 2021 was not the last, and we must look forward into the years and decades ahead of us and prepare. I applaud the county and this board effort to pursue damages and recompense from companies that have made a business out of hurting us and lying about it. We must always seek justice in any avenues we can, in the tax code, in the boardroom, or in the courts. Thank you.
Next, in room 126, we have Lightning.
My name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Creativity AI, as everyone can laugh. Again, the decision for Tom Dundon to either stay in Portland or relocate is going to be one of the biggest decisions that we ever see in the city of Portland, Multnomah County. Again, my position is I do not want any public money or funding on this arena. There are numerous sports economists that will agree with what I am stating. Again, my position is that I think he should, to prevent any public funding being spent, to relocate to Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is a boom town right now with AI. We have Elon Musk moved all of his companies into Austin, Texas. One of his buildings, the largest building on earth in Texas, 100 million square feet, TerraFab. Again, you have many AI companies leaving California right now and going to Austin, Texas. So when you look at the values of the NBA franchises, such as the Los Angeles Lakers, we just saw hit a record, understand that is being driven by the AI community. That is being driven, and they are all going to Austin, Texas at this time. So for Tom Dundon, if he gets into Austin, Texas now, he will, in my opinion, double his value automatically. It will go up to $8 billion. And he has the potential, working with Elon Musk and various people,
within Austin to push the value past $12 billion. I think he will do that. I think he will surpass the Los Angeles Lakers and the LA Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. Again, when you look at those three teams, just imagine what can happen in what they call the Texas Triangle. The Texas AI Triangle is going to be the boom town. This is where everybody is going. This is where the biggest money is going. This is where they'll have the biggest sponsors. They will surpass Silicon Valley, in my opinion. Why? Because Elon Musk has that ability, and he will do it. He's doing it right now. And for Tom Dundon to call up Elon Musk at SpaceX, get together and ask Elon Musk one question. Should I stay in Portland or should I go to Austin, Texas? I already know what Elon Musk will say. He will be a sponsor. Tom Dundon will be able to create what he wants with his NBA franchise. In Portland, for Tom Dundon, you could have a reverse value. We are a flatline market right now. We have seen buildings, the Bancourt building, sell it originally at $375. Mr. Schweikert scooped it up for $40 million. Those are 70% losses. Now is a good time to relocate, Mr. Dundon. Your opportunity, Austin, Texas.
That is all for public testimony. Non-agenda.
All right, thank you, Tasia.
May I make a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Moyer.
May I move that we move R3 to the beginning of the agenda, and I make this request. Oh, I need a second.
So we don't. So if there's been a request made to move R3 to the beginning of the agenda, thank you, Commissioner Moyer. I don't know that we need a second. I think we just need to see if there's any objections to moving R3 to the beginning of the agenda. I don't see anything, so we'll go ahead and move R3 to the beginning of the agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Moyer. Tasia, can we go ahead and move on to R3 then?
Yes, we can. Let me pull it up. R3, resolution approving termination of low-income housing development agreement for 722, 732, and 736 Northeast Cooch Street.
Now we need motion.
A motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Moyer moved, and I believe we had Commissioner Jones Dickson second.
Can I begin?
Yes, so we have,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, everyone. I wanted to move it up because Hayden, my policy director, has done the bulk of the work on this, and he cannot stay to the end of the agenda, so I appreciate that flexibility. I'm bringing this resolution forward in order to allow Volunteers of America to sell three parcels of land that Multnomah County transferred to them in 2015 for, it is 3 single-family homes, of which they ran a program that served approximately 10 to 15 individuals. We discontinued funding that program in 2023. They have remained vacant. And VOA is embarking on a really exciting project in Commissioner's from Edwards District, although very close to many parts. It's at Multnomah University. It is a campus that will, and I'll leave it to VOA to discuss what this project is, but it's a really exciting opportunity for us to help in this endeavor where the truth is the county is quite limited in what resources we can make available to this recovery campus. Just a little bit of background of what it is I am asking. Right now, Volunteers of America has a buyer for this property. The but because it is zoned for low-income housing at the 60% median family income level, they have an offer of $600,000. If we were to remove that, they could get $1.6 million, which they have committed to putting into the project at Multnomah University. This is a way for us to both make sure that we are expanding housing opportunities for low-income individuals, this one being recovery focused, and also support a really, really important addition to our recovery system, which we know is profoundly under-resourced, although I am pleased with the work that the county is doing to try to expand that. There's a fact sheet. There was a number of questions that were asked, and VOA was able to answer those. I hope everyone saw them. But I'm happy to answer questions, but I did want to let Volunteers of America, and I believe their CEO is with us, to discuss both this property and where they would be using the revenue from the sale for. So if I may, I'd like to turn it over to them.
Commissioner Moyer, before you turn it over to them, can I?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Commissioner Remembrance.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate working with Commissioner Moyer to bring this resolution forward today. I want to also thank the partnership that we have, the long partnership the county has had with Volunteers of America Oregon, and the discussions we've had with Marie Wacker, who will be who's here with us today. Volunteers of America has an exciting vision and plan to build a 6-acre health and family services campus in Montevilla. This will be an expansion and replacement for the current Volunteers of America project, and it would replace the current and vacant 3 properties on Northeast 7th and Cooch that Commissioner Moyer referenced. The action will allow, before us today, will allow VOA to sell the Northeast Cooch properties at a market rate, enabling VOA to use that revenue from the sale and contribute to the overall funding and completion of the Health and Family Services campus. I look forward to Marie presenting more of the details of this new campus, which will provide transitional housing, wraparound services, and residential treatment programs with over 100 new beds. And with that, I think, Commissioner Moyer, we can hand it over to and introduce Marie Wacker from Volunteers of America.
Oregon Commissioners, this is W. Hayden Ferris. Marie Wacker left in the chat on the WebEx that she's having troubles connecting and disconnecting, or troubles with staying connected, so she's trying to rejoin the WebEx right now.
I found her. Marie, are you able to unmute? It looks like Marie is having some technical difficulties.
It looks like she was able to come off mute for a second. Tasia, have you sent a request for her to come off mute?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can. We can't see you, but we can hear you just fine.
You can. Okay, well, then you're not missing much, as I told Commissioner Moyer when I met with her. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Vega Peterson. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for consideration of this resolution. We do have a great vision for VOA Oregon, and VOA for a number of years is in a place where we have not invested in the facilities of this organization. And I like to deliver behavioral health care in a very trauma-informed and bright and light, competing with the best healthcare buildings and facilities, across the country. And that's what we want to do at VOA. We know there is a tremendous need for the services we provide in mental health and addiction, gambling services. We offer, we have a large domestic violence program. We serve children and families, and so we are really focused on building and growing this organization to have facilities that match the qualities and the quality of the program. The resolution we're requesting would allow us to sell, as Commissioner Brim Edwards suggested or said, to sell the property at a market rate. The property has been on the market for the last a little over a year now. And I checked in with our brokers again to confirm, as I thought was the case just yesterday, and they confirmed that there has been no interest in from low-income buyers in the property. In fact, no requests for tours in over the last year, but there have been several requests at market rate. And they believe that there is a way, there are market rate buyers out there right now, several that they are in contact with. And so this would only increase the revenue from the sale, which we are directing the sale. We're trying to market several properties we have to come together on a larger site. And this would allow us to have a bigger return on the sale of the property and therefore a greater investment into the program. Our board did adopt a resolution that sales of our properties at this time will fund the future of the program and getting that going for the campus. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Moyer?
No, I'll wait for questions.
Okay, great. We have we'll go to the board for questions. We'll start with Commissioner Jones-Dixon.
Great, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Moyer, for bringing this forward. I appreciate the one pager that provided responses to the questions that were provided. So I don't have any further questions. My questions were answered from the response.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Moyer?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, just like for the record, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. First, has this property ever operated as a 60% low-income rental property?
Yes, we when we first the property was transitioned in 2015, the county was funding the operations of the house, and the additional cost to cover those operations was funded through low-income rents, and that is in fact the model that VOA has employed in its other recovery houses. 2 of which we are opening 2 more in the fall. And so what happened was the county quit funding the operational piece of these houses in 2023. There was also, from my review of the records, a request made to the county to repair a pretty severe plumbing issue that made the houses inoperable. And both of those did not continue, or where the capital request was not.
The new facility, will it offer low-income housing opportunities? Uh-oh. Did we lose her? Oh, no.
It looks like we lost her.
I don't see that she's rejoined yet, but we can, we have one person signed up for public testimony, so we can do that and see if she rejoins the meeting. Lightning, would you like to come down for public testimony?
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Creativity AI as Everyone Humanity Lab. One of the concerns I have on this, of course, is the affordable housing aspect of it, making sure people aren't displaced, which is really the whole point of this moving forward originally. And it's my question is, do you have to sell this to be able to do your other project? Could you keep this in place and still offer the lower priced housing for people in your services? And also, can you transfer the development housing agreement to another nonprofit, which they can come in and just take that over and pay you a reasonable amount of money to do that instead of going to the market rate and displacing people, because that's what we're talking about. And, you know, when we're talking nonprofits, you have to be very sensitive to what you originally agreed to when you get ready to sell something, and also take care of the people that are in the properties. And are you going to provide them any assistance on into other properties and pay their moving costs and various things like that? Now, just to move a little bit, it's kind of on the same topic when we're talking development rights. I want to get back to the Moda Center development rights and have an understanding that I have not seen anything on those lots that we're talking about. I have not seen any values on those lots that we're talking about that is being discussed to go to a nonprofit. As you know, on that Moda Center, I would like to see the Portland Trail Blazers, the players themselves, their family members, their children, be in first position on those development rights, the lots around the Moda Center, so they can sell that to a nonprofit and then take the money and put that into a trust and do what they want with that money. So again, on these development rights are to be taken very seriously when certain commitments are being made up front. And again, do they have to sell this property at market rate to be able to do their other project that we're discussing here? Or could they have a lower price that they can get and still do their project and still maintain the affordable housing at this current location? And that is a big concern to me on following through with your commitments to possibly obtain a property and then just turning around and selling it at market rate. That's a big problem to me if you have contracts in place where you said that you would do certain things and now you're just changing everything at this point to get a high market rate. So yes, I am a little concerned on this overall look at this time on this issue. Thank you.
That's all for public testimony, and it looks like Mary's back online.
Okay, great. Thank you. Glad you're able to come back, Mary.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because this is my last question. On the new development that you are fundraising for, which you are looking to raise $125 million, will there be low-income housing as a component of this? Either recovery housing or whatever. I just want to make sure that we are overall not losing potential capacity in our low-income housing system.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Moyer. Yes, so we are providing, first and foremost, 100 residential treatment beds. Those individuals stay in housing for, on average, 3 to 4 months. And then additionally, plans for the campus is recovery housing, in which they would step down to outpatient level of care while they are learning to live sober and make those necessary community contacts, find jobs, find permanent housing in which our peers would be assisting them. The traditional model, which we started right before I left for health, and it's about to open, and it's so exciting, But anyway, that is the very same type of program.
All right, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Singleton, any questions you have?
Thank you, Chair. I do. Sorry, now my computer wants to try and update. So I do have a couple of questions. I just want to appreciate the work. It looks like we might have lost Mary again, but just acknowledge that VOA has done some amazing work, and I've had the privilege of seeing how they can impact people's lives through some of the work that I've done with clients. I do have a couple of questions, and one of them is to kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Moyer was saying. It sounds like we're not talking about permanent housing on the site, that it is actually transitional housing, which we absolutely do need, but I do want to acknowledge is different than a permanent affordable housing apartment or house rental. So I'm curious if that's what we're talking about on the campus, or if there is permanent housing. I don't know how, Mary, I do see that you're still here. Are you able to respond to the question?
Yes,
Thank you.
I am still here for now. I'm so sorry. So no permanent housing. However, our model is to begin working on housing with someone from the moment they enter residential treatment. So permanent housing. So, where I was last leading at Flora Health, we can always say, and this is the goal at VOA as well, that no one left residential treatment without a place to go, housing-wise. We would want to accomplish the very same thing through the residential beds that we are building, as well as through the outpatient program. So there's a lot of work on our team's part to help these individuals relocate to the more permanent housing scenario, but no, not additional permanent housing units. I will say, just so you may or may not know this, VOA is a national organization, and we are the largest nonprofit public housing provider in the country. And so I have been in conversations with our national organization about how to bring more permanent housing, affordable housing to this community, because I believe, and I know we need it. So I will be continuing to work on that front. And maybe at some point I'll have great news in that regard. But for what we are planning today, it does not have any permanent housing.
Thank you. And it looks like the difference in what you could get for this land is about $1 million.
I think we believe that that's the case. Yes.
Okay. And then your financing plan that you shared, thank you for sending some of these, some of these details out to us. You have, it looks like 120.2 million is the expected financing that's needed. You have a mix of funding. I see it includes Multnomah County. Is the plan to come back and ask for additional funds for the development of this new campus?
Yes, and we would anticipate that request being made probably 2 years from now.
Thank you. I will just say I think that there is a ton of value, and I am excited about this new campus. I don't think that $1 million difference warrants us letting go of land that is currently able to be used for affordable housing. In a $120 million project, I think $1 million is a drop in the bucket that we could look at alternative funding sources for. I think there are opportunities to redevelop on this land, and I know you're not necessarily getting a lot of hits through your current realtor, but I'm curious if you've actually worked with any of our affordable housing developers to talk about this land in particular and opportunities to redevelop either a small apartment complex or townhomes or some other type of affordable home ownership opportunity. Because I know the zoning there allows for multiple types.
Yes, that's a terrific question. We have had the call. First of all, they have no low-income developers interest, despite proactive reaching out on the part of Apex Real Estate Partners, our broker. They have reached out to several active low-income buyers over the past year without any interest. And what they've explained to me as late as just yesterday, again, is that the investment required to redevelop, say, take those homes down and put up multiple units on the property, which you're right, it is, of course, zoned that way, would not be able to justify the expense of doing that, would not be returned to the developer in the way, by the way of the rents that they could select at the 60% median income. So that is why they have not had takers, because of the expense of redevelopment is prohibiting the investment that it would take, which makes sense to me. That's what it explained to me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really think that I am more than willing to lean in and help where we can to close that $1 million gap. And I am fully supportive of the new campus. I'm just not going to be able to support this resolution today because of the affordable housing opportunity that is close in, which we rarely get in this community. I don't want to keep focusing on us developing housing that's further out. This location in the center of the city, I think, is really critical for us to keep in our affordable housing portfolio. So unfortunately, I won't be able to vote yes on this today, but I am very supportive of the future campus. And I just think they're two different things. I don't want to equate the two together. They don't go together in my mind. I understand for you all they do because it's a part of the financing plan. But again, I think there's $1 million that can be sought in other ways than losing this piece of land that could be in close and near amenities, affordable housing for our community. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to following up with you to talk about the larger financing plan and how I can be supportive.
Thank you, Commissioner Singleton. Commissioner Brim Edwards.
I don't have any questions at this time. I just want to appreciate that the questions that came in beforehand were answered. And I may have comments before we wrap this up, but at this point, no questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I do have a few questions. So thank you, Marie, for being here to help answer some of these questions. So the county created several plots of surplus properties back in 2015, before any of us were here at the county. But at the time, I know that there was a lot of, at the time there were several entities that were looking at properties that they owned and looking at how they could, at selling them. And some entities sold them at market rate, but the county made a very conscious decision to sell the properties that we had as affordable housing, to put these affordable housing covenants in place. And there was a pretty extensive RFP process led by DCHS to use the properties that we had for affordable housing, for transition recovery housing for women, all of that. That VOA won that competitive process to do that. And, obviously part of the stipulation on that is that there was going to be a 60-year deed restriction requiring their use for low-income housing at the 60% level. And I was looking back at the agreement that was made at the time, and one of the things that's pretty clear in the agreement is that the properties were sold as is, and that was something that VOA agreed to. So Marie, I'm not sure when you're talking about like there was a plumbing issue that you came and asked the county to pay for. To me, in looking at that, there was no understanding that the county would, carry forward any responsibility for maintenance of the properties as they were being sold as is. So I'm not sure how that factored into your ability to use them for affordable housing or not. But I am. I do think that it's important, the fact that there was a competitive process and there were many entities at the time who were interested in potentially, taking ownership of these properties to use them for affordable housing, understanding that there was going to be a 60-year deed restriction on there for the affordable housing. I think that, so to me, that's really the tough thing that I am thinking about and struggling with. I also know that, could you, Marie, and I think you said this earlier, but could you talk a little bit about like when was the last time that these properties actually were used for affordable housing that VOA had? When they were since they've been under VOA ownership?
Yes, Chair, thank you. The plumbing issue arose in 2023. That was I think it was June of 23 that the property could not be operated any longer because of the plumbing issue. I agree with you, there was no obligation. The properties were sold as is. They were with a functioning plumbing system when the property was transitioned to VOA. But we could not, apparently VOA at the time, and I've been with VOA a little over a year, was unable to find the capital or to find the money to fix the plumbing issue. The request was made to the county to see if the county would support it. That did not obviously happen. So yes, so the homes were operated in that fashion for the 8 years preceding that date.
Okay,
can I ask a clarifying question?
For me?
No,
Marie.
But it's the same question for Marie.
Sure.
Were they operated as transitional, or were they operated as permanent?
My understanding is they were transitional. They were women in active recovery. It was not ever permanent, is my understanding. But I can tell you, it came to an organization that wasn't very good about documenting and keeping things in the right places, and I have tried everything I can to find it. But I am making the assumption, since we have other homes that county is supporting, that the agreement is similar to what we do today with 2 homes, where the county pays for some operational expenses and we make up the difference on a house with the billing we can do through outpatient services. And I believe the net income on that kind of arrangement, where there's 2 revenue sources, for us is under $20,000 a house. And so which is good, it breaks even, but absent the county's support of a house where we're unable to recover the cost to run the home for low income rate. So I will say that we are adding 2 new houses in the fall. One on Martin Luther King, on Sacramento, off of Martin Luther King for men, and the other will be women in recovery, same purpose as this property was, women in active recovery on Lynn Street in Sellwood this fall. So certainly by year end, we hope to have 2 full houses of additional houses of folks in active recovery. And it is all transitional, none of those.
Okay, thanks. I have a couple other questions. So looking at the agreement, I mean, just understanding that this really hasn't been used as affordable housing by VOA since 2023. There is, in the agreement, there is the remedies for events of default if the properties weren't used for their intended purposes for a period of longer than 90 days. And I'm not an attorney, but I'm, one of the things I'm curious about is, you have not, it doesn't sound like you've been successful. Your brokers have been successful in marketing these properties or in finding potential buyers for these properties. And I don't know what that process has looked like, for you, but there is the possibility of the county taking these properties back if we wanted to go that route just because of the fact that they hadn't been used for affordable housing. I want to both give respect to the intent of the board that made these properties surplus as affordable housing, but I also want to recognize like the moment that we're in when we have thousands of units lacking in affordable housing at 60% and 30% levels, like throughout our organization and throughout our county and our city. And really we've specifically written in housing and affordable housing as key performance indicators for some of the goals that we have as a county, sharing with the city of Gresham and the city of Portland on that. And we have a lack of these affordable units. I know that you had conversations, or VOA had conversations with my office back in January about the proposal to do this, and I wasn't supportive of it at the time. So I really, my mind hasn't changed since then, because I feel like there may be other paths or avenues that we can go down to see if there's potential to continue to use these properties and keep them affordable housing in the in the more central city area where we have lost thousands of units over the last decades. So I want to leave room for those possibilities. And I agree. Like I'm very supportive of the campus. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I know that this is a project that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars of costs, and I don't know that the difference in cost of selling these properties with the affordable housing covenant on them versus not is going to make or break the difference for the ability to fundraise for what's needed for these projects. So I wanted to share where I am because we do have dire need for affordable housing. This is something that the county intentionally put in place because we wanted to keep that specifically in this geographic area. So I wanted to share what I was, and really, my feelings on this haven't changed since there were the conversations back in January. Okay. Any other questions or closing comments? Okay. Tasia,
I would like to make just a quick closing comment. I totally understand the complexity of this issue, so I respect disagreement, and that's totally fine. And this is maybe also a plug just for our future. I am just very wildly supportive of what VOA is trying to accomplish at Multnomah University, particularly the types of services that they are going to be filling a really profound gap that we have right now. The loss of women-only intensive outpatient with housing is a critical need in our community. I understand that this is like a drop in a bucket, but I also am pretty realistic about what Multnomah County is going to be able to do in the next 3 years. Sorry to not feel optimistic about revenue. And so, we are all talking about trade-offs, and I get that, and I respect that. But to me, I feel like I have 3 buildings that are uninhabitable in my district with no prospect for development on the horizon. I hope that changes. And I see a project that I personally want to do all I can to support, because I know how desperately this community needs these holes to be filled. That's why I brought it forward. And there's not a lot we can do right now in support of this effort, but I feel like moving from what we asked and agreed to do on that property and allowing that to continue on a property that never did this before, so it is a new expanded opportunity to do very similar and even more things, to me made sense. And I hope that we can figure out to whatever degree we can, helping this dream become a reality, because, you know, in the continuum of SUD treatment, what VOA is developing is a desperately needed hole that we have right now.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So I just have some short closing comments. I think if those units were full and they were actually functional, this would be probably a different conversation, and if the county were still supporting it, but the structures are unused. The county discontinued support. And I think just looking at having sat in meetings for many weeks with the affordable housing providers that have all the vacant units, most of them are underwater and not in a position to step into new projects because they are barely keeping their current projects afloat. We need recovery housing. This is a way that, one way that the county commission, in a years, I'm looking forward that we don't have a lot of resources. We're not in a position to be providing a lot more things. This is one way that we could be helpful to bring online 100 units of beds of recovery housing, which we know are desperately needed. So I hope that we're able to help versus just having those units continue to sit there unused.
Thank you. Any other closing comments? Okay, I will just say, I really appreciate this discussion. I want to recognize the intention that Commissioner Moyer and Commissioner Brim Edwards that you're doing. I think we are all supportive of the project, and we just have a difference of opinions on the value of removing this affordable housing covenant versus not. I mean, I do want to clarify that VOA was gifted these properties from the county back in 2015, and we weren't in any obligation to continue funding them. They were transferred as is, and they were not being used because the properties were allowed to go into disrepair. I mean, that's the reason why they're not being used. And there is a like I said, there is a default in the clause in the agreement about them not being used, and the county may have the opportunity to see if there's additional or other options for continuing to use these as affordable housing. I feel like that's a really important piece, and despite the fact that there are some unoccupied units, there is also a really outstanding need for affordable housing in our city and in our county. So to me, that is the really key piece, is that this was something that we did intentionally at the county. And again, the difference in the ability to have the affordable housing or not on the properties, I think maybe a small difference in financial when looking at the bigger picture of the cost of the overall project, but is meaningful when it comes to our commitment to continuing to keep the inventory of affordable housing in the Central City region, to keep that inventory as high as we can make it at the county. Okay, I think we are at the end of our discussion. Can we go ahead and have a roll call vote, Tasha?
Commissioner Moyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Singleton?
No.
Commissioner Brim Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones-Dickson?
Yes.
Chair Vega Peterson?
No. The motion passes. All right. Thank you. We will go back to R1 now, Tasha.
R1, public hearing and first reading of ordinance amending MCC Chapter 11.500, preschool for all personal income tax to reflect certain administrative code changes.
Can I have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Commissioner Jones-Dickson moves, Commissioner Brim Edwards seconds, approval of R1. This is an opportunity to improve the administration of Preschool for All tax by supporting refunds for those who may have overpaid in the first 2 years of the taxes. I want to thank Eric Ariano, our CFO, and his team for the work on this and the other improvements that have been made. I will turn it over to Eric for further explanation on this item. Good morning.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Commissioners. Eric Ariano, Chief Financial Officer. And I'm here to request your approval on a first reading to amend Chapter 11-500, which is our Preschool for All tax. And this request would essentially allow for refunds on possible overpayments for Preschool for All payers for tax years 2021 and 22 through employer withholding. And just for some context in terms of our current code is that under our existing code, we limit, and this is section 11-542, that section limits taxpayers and essentially requesting refunds. They must file a return within 3 years of the due date to receive a refund, and that's in alignment with Oregon Revised Statute. Sorry, section 314 Oregon Revised Statute. And so if they do not file a return within that 3-year window, they're not eligible for a refund. And so the city of Portland reached out to Multnomah County and to Metro back in the late spring to notify us that, because we, again, historically, we've aligned our personal income taxes both for preschool and supportive housing, that they had identified that there was payments that were made for Preschool for All that were through employer withholding for tax years 2021 and 22, where there might be possible overpayments where some of these taxpayers didn't meet the income threshold. And considering the fact that in the first 2 years of the tax, it was a new tax, and there was a transition period in terms of being aware of the tax, communication around the tax. We did a lot in coordination with Metro and the city to improve communication around the tax, but also there was just that transition that happens in terms of new tax with employers actually providing a mechanism for employees to essentially set up employer withholding. And again, there's a transition period in that time frame. So sometimes taxpayers can set up something that shouldn't be set up or over withhold. In any case, we felt like it was in coordinating with the city, our administrator for Preschool for All, and our partners over at Metro, that it made sense for tax year 2021 and 22 for us to make a temporary modification to our tax code to allow for some targeted outreach to those taxpayers to give them a little bit more time to assess their tax situation and to request a refund. So under this proposed tax amendment is that we would provide a temporary, essentially extension to our current code that would say that if a taxpayer for only 2021 and 22, if they file a return by April 15th of 2027 and request a refund, obviously if they're subject to a refund, that we will provide a refund. And so it would just allow for that time frame for those 2 tax years, which I think if we move forward with this, it would give around a little bit over 8 months for us to kind of proceed with that effort. So if you were to approve this amendment to our tax code, there'd be some targeted outreach to those taxpayers probably in early September to give time for those individuals to assess their situation. Again, these are individuals that had made payments but never filed a return and could be eligible possibly for a refund if they file a return and request a refund. So this was obviously, we try to maintain alignment with our partners at Metro. They submitted, actually their council approved a similar code change back in, I believe, May. And so if you were to approve this, again, first and second reading, we would proceed with a similar change in action in terms of this, but related to Preschool for All. Other changes are just housekeeping. This this change is really targeted around that section 11542, which deals with deficiencies and refunds. So, and the second reading is next week on the 27th, but from now, I'll just open up for any questions or comments that you may have on the proposed change.
Thank you, Eric. Tasha, do we have any public comment on this item? No, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the board for questions. We'll start with Commissioner Moyer. Any questions on this one?
Just one, I'm supportive. I, obviously believe people deserve refund. Ian, and I understand this was the beginning of implementation. So that is obviously confusing, I think, for a lot of taxpayers when things are new and they may not realize that they either owe taxes or have paid them and didn't owe. Do we do this, or have we done this for other programs where the income of the taxpayers are significantly lower? Do we look for opportunities to make sure that they're getting refunds if they overpaid?
In this particular, I guess a comparable with Preschool for All, not necessarily from my time being here, but for other programs like, for example, like business income tax, yeah, we do outreach all the time around that, around possible overpayments for refunds. But again, that's a totally different program, different structure in terms of the tax code. But I think for Preschool for All, this is one that I've worked on. And obviously, like I said earlier, I think there was just, again, that transition period. And I think one of the difficulties here with this one, Commissioner, is that with the, and again, similar structure with the Metro personal income taxes, that it's based on if you meet a threshold, right? And so it's not automatically you earn income, you're automatically subject to withholding like state income tax. So it's easier to set up. With this, you have to meet a threshold, and we don't know, employers don't know. We're also one that withholds too, offers withholding. We don't know somebody's filing status, whether they're filing jointly, single. We don't know their whole tax situation. So it involves some, hey, here's some information, make an assessment of whether you want to withhold, you're subject to this tax. So it definitely adds some complication to that process. So both for employers to set up to communicate, but also for taxpayers to assess. So again, in those first couple of years, there's a added complexity to it.
Yeah, and I'm supportive. I just want to make sure that we don't target wanting to give people refunds just for the high income earners and not in other programs. So thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Commissioner Moyer. Commissioner Singleton, any questions?
No questions. Thank you for your work on this, Eric.
Thank you. Commissioner Bram Edwards.
No questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Jones-Dixon.
Same, no questions. Thank you.
Hey, thanks. I don't have any questions either, Eric. I think it's worth noting that the Preschool for All tax is really the first income tax that the county has levied since 2003. And I think stretching those muscles again and learning what we need to do in terms of managing an income tax has been a learning for the county. So I just want to thank you and your team for all the work that's gone into making these changes over time, and the continued work with the city of Portland in order to make sure that things are going smoothly in terms of improved communications and filing options expansion, raising the estimated payment threshold that we did earlier this year. So all of those things I think have been improvements, and this will be another one that we'll be able to do. So thank you for that. Tasia, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Singleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Bram Edwards?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones-Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Moyer?
Yes.
Chair Vega Peterson?
Yes, the first reading is approved, and the second reading, is scheduled for August 27th.
R2, public hearing and first reading of ordinance amending MCC Chapter 11.5 Preschool for All program income tax to reflect certain administrative code changes.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, we have Commissioner Singleton move, Commissioner Jones-Dixon second, approval of R2. So this action today for the board is going to be considering whether to enact or delay a 0.8% increase in the preschool for all tax, which is currently scheduled to take effect on January 1st, 2027. This follows an earlier board action to delay the increase in 2024. I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to this board, to the staff at the county, and to our community for all the work that's been accomplished this past year to understand the preschool for all tax structure and what's needed to ensure that the program is sustainable for the future. Since our series of public meetings last summer, when we committed to a more comprehensive review of the tax structure and budget needed to serve our community, we have had numerous presentations from external policy experts, the release of the joint TAG and PAG report, conversations with PEL leadership, a new study on the true cost of preschool care, and as of this week, an updated population forecast from Portland State University, all of which is vital to informing the conversations that we're having today. The updated demographic report from PSU shows that we need approximately 3,000 fewer preschool seats to reach universal coverage than the baseline assumptions that we started with back in 2019, 2020. Given that the primary cost drivers of preschool for all are the seats that we allocate, this does have major implications for future expenses. And meanwhile, modeling from the Technical Advisory Group, or TAG, found that even with a delay in the tax increase, the program remains fiscally sustainable over a 20-year time frame, provided that Oregon avoids a recession comparable to the 2008 global financial crisis. And I know we've had lots of modeling from Jeff on scenarios like that. The majority of TAG members made a series of recommendations, including to delay the scheduled tax increase until 2029, while preserving the option to revisit if a tax increase is needed at that time. All of this information makes me confident that we can afford to delay this tax increase while sustaining the program's growth for future generations, which is why we have the resolution before us this morning. The resolution is a proposal to delay the tax increase by 2 years per the TAG recommendations. However, as I said in last week's board work session on this topic, I'm open to a 1-year delay if this board wants more flexibility in potentially responding to information that may develop over the next year. I know that there is an amendment posted by Commissioners Singleton and Moyer to delay the tax by 1 year, and I support that amendment and I consider it a friendly one. So before we get into that conversation, though, I want to turn it over to Jeff Renfro, the county economist, who's going to provide an overview of requested economic scenario proposals that we gave him last week since the work session. So Jeff, I will turn it over to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. For the record, I'm Jeff Renfro. I'm the county economist. Use he, him pronouns. Like last week, I intend to be pretty brief. So stop me at any point, or I'll stop to answer questions at the end. Tasia, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to start by establishing kind of the baseline that we've talked about several times already. Then I'll go through the scenarios that the chair had requested previously, and I'll kind of show them in public for everyone here. And then I've also disaggregated all the different pieces from District 1's requests. So next slide, please. So this is the updated baseline we've talked about a couple of times already. This only incorporates the updated population estimates. It assumes that the tax increases on January 1st, 2027. As we've talked about before, the way to read this graph is if the fund balance line remains above zero for the entire time, it means that we anticipate having the resources to successfully implement the program as we currently plan to do it. If we could go to the next slide, please. This one is also one that we've seen a couple of times before. So this is taking the TAG recommended scenario, so delaying the tax increase by 2 years, incorporating the updated seat cost from the True Cost of Care study, and then also incorporating those updated population estimates. You'll see that the fund balance line remains well above zero throughout our entire study period. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the chair requested an additional take on this one, which was incorporating an assumption of higher inclusion costs into the modeling. So this is not super sophisticated. It assumes that we double the inclusion spending in every year going forward. As we've talked about in the past, it's really the number of seats and how much those seats cost that drive our expectations. So while this is a significant cost just in dollar terms compared to the change in results when we change the number of seats, this is relatively mild. The other thing I want to note here is for our next several slides, I've left a baseline there in red just to see that the impact of deviating from that baseline. The baseline in this case does assume that it does incorporate the higher seat costs. So it's lower population estimate and higher seat costs, but then those are the only two changes incorporated into the baseline for comparison. Go to the next slide, please. So then this is the first of three scenarios that the chair asked me to look at. All three of these scenarios assume that we never increase the tax. So the first one is not increasing the tax and then also diverting the interest to some other early childhood education programming. I'll say we're assuming a high level of interest over the next couple of years as interest rates remain high. But then as we get to the out years of our modeling, we're assuming that interest rates go back to normal. And then also as we spend down the fund balance, as we kind of get through our dedicated savings strategy, the pool that those interest rates apply to also shrinks. So as we get into the out years, we're expecting less than $1 million per year in interest, whereas in the last couple of years, it's been over 15 million. So this is more of a short-term impact rather than a big ongoing impact. So the fund balance line does go below zero on this one, but that is mostly due to the assumption that we don't increase the tax. Diverting the interest has a much smaller impact on this. Next slide, please. So this one assumes we do not increase the tax and that we eliminate the marriage penalty. So eliminating the marriage penalty just means that we change the threshold for joint filers so that it is double the threshold for single filers. Right now, it's a little bit less than double. So practically what this is doing by raising the threshold for joint filers, it's excluding some additional income from the tax liability calculation. So it decreases our expected collections on an ongoing basis. So you'll see that the fund balance line goes fairly deeply below zero in this case. The impact of this is sort of similar to how we've talked about the modeling we've done around indexing, where really anything we're doing to push up our tax threshold is having a big impact, or it's having a relatively small impact, but on all taxpayers, which tends to add up to a big overall impact for our collections. We could go to the next slide, please. And then the last one from the chair request was no tax increase, but then also incorporating a lower tax rate. So this assumes that the tax rate is decreased by 0.5%. This has an even bigger impact on our collections than adjusting the thresholds in the previous one. So in this one also, we're well below zero by not increasing the tax and then also lowering the rate. It has a really significant impact on our collections. Next slide, please. So then the next. Yeah.
Sorry, before you get there, I just wanted to give some, I just wanted to give some background on like the different scenarios that I had asked you about. One of the reasons I asked Jeff to do these scenarios was really because we've heard a lot from people that like we should lower the tax rate, that we shouldn't increase the tax ever, all of these things. And I thought it was really important to be able to show that taking these things to actually doing these things has a very definite detrimental effect on the program. And so that if we want to continue the Preschool for All program, as we've committed to doing to the voters who passed this measure, like those considerations would require a serious change in what the program looks like, what we're able to do for that. Because I think as we get into potential conversations about recommendations from the prosperity council or other things that may come up, especially in the next legislative session when I'm not here. Like, I wanted to make sure that we had the data to show what actually impacts of doing some of those ideas would be. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear for this board and the public. Thank you, Jeff.
No problem, Chair. And also note on that point, the way that we're able to do these calculations, I think we have a really significant benefit in having access to the tax returns. So the way I do this is I actually go in and I look at the tax returns and I redo everyone's taxes based on different thresholds or different rates. So I feel very confident in the results of this analysis. Okay, so then we'll start a few slides that disaggregate the requests that District 1 had in her scenarios. They are put into kind of thematic buckets. So the first one is it takes the two assumptions related to population that would increase our seat need. So this includes 90% participation rate, and also the assumption that we don't lose 10% of kids in between birth and the start of preschool. I think what's notable here is we've talked about in the past, those two population adjustments together almost perfectly offset the update in the demographic forecast that we got. So this takes us back to needing about 11,000 seats at Universal. So if we go back to 11,000, we incorporate the higher cost estimates or the seats from the true cost of care study. It actually puts us below the zero baseline by what I would call a significant amount. So a year ago, before we updated the population estimates, our baseline modeling showed that in the future we expected that fund balance line to go below zero. At the time, I said it's going below zero, but not by a ton, and it's also pretty far into the future, so I don't think we need to be overly worried about it right now. So going back to a pretty similar set of assumptions and incorporating those higher seat costs, this does go below zero by what I would consider a meaningful amount. So the incorporation of those lower population estimates are doing significant work to make us think that the program can be implemented as we currently plan. If we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this one includes the increased program cost assumptions. So it assumes that we ramp up and then ramp down professional development costs. We increase the subpool, and then we also double inclusion costs. One thing I want to call out here for eagle-eyed viewers is, so this is pretty similar to the one I showed you before, where we took the tag assumption and we incorporated the doubling of inclusion costs. So the two differences here, which are sort of difficult to see just by looking at the line, is this one assumes that the tax increases on January 1st as we planned to. The previous one had assumed a 2-year delay. The other thing here is that there's some pretty subtle differences in how the increased costs are incorporated into the two different scenarios. And the path of those increases, as well as kind of how inflation is acting on all of it, makes it so the line looks pretty similar, but there are some slight adjustments as it goes through. So even though they look similar, there's different stuff happening under the hood. So this one remains well above the zero access in this case. Next slide, please, Tasia. Okay, this assumes that we have a recession next year that would be a recession similar in magnitude to the Great Recession. Like we talked about last time, our long-term assumption incorporates multiple sort of business cycles. So it's one number that we're applying as our growth assumption in the out years, but it's a number that reflects recessions and expansions and all of that. So to incorporate this into the modeling, I incorporate a whole business cycle. So we deviate from the baseline as revenues decline, but then as they recover, we end up going back to where we expect it to be in the out years. So in this case, it would be a decrease in the fund balance by an amount that still remains well above zero, but then we would be back to our long-term expectation going forward. Next slide, please. Okay, and then this one incorporates the two different reserve scenarios. So the first one in the blue line assumes that we establish our reserves at 1 year of operating expenses, and then the purple line is 2 years of operating expenses. So like we talked about last time, because we would spend money to top up the reserves to the appropriate level, the way you would think about that is we're transferring money from our dedicated savings pot over to reserves, and we're locking it away from ourselves. So that's why both of these, there's two different downward adjustments that are of two different magnitudes depending on how much we're adding to get to this new reserve level. And then the out years looks exactly the same because it's just like a one-time adjustment. And then the adjustments we make in the out years to keep the reserve at board policy level. It does differ slightly, but not by enough to significantly change how we think about the out years of this. Okay, if we want to go to the next slide, please. And with that, I'll stop, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Okay, any questions for Jeff? Commissioner Singleton?
No, thank you, Jeff. These are helpful, as always.
Thank you. Commissioner Broome-Edwards?
No questions. However, I want to just share some appreciation for the updated population forecast. 2 to 3 years ago, when the first forecasts were being shown, I could tell that they were not aligned with what local school districts were forecasting in terms of population. And I feel like now that we have more accurate information, which reduces, I think, more closely tracks what we're seeing at most of our local school districts, that having a more accurate forecast, hopefully we're going to also continue to keep that refreshed and updated, that will create greater trust and credibility in the program, that we have sort of locked down some of our like the fundamentals, if that's one of the key components of the cost of the program. I'm going to be interested this upcoming year to see whether with more available seats, whether we actually the utilization rate of saturation rate of the usage increases. As Commissioner Moyer had noted earlier, the number that we are using as like what we expect out of the total population to use, the county's universal preschool program, is not at the same levels as some other communities that have universal preschool, and that may impact the cost. So I'm going to be really interested to see this next year, whether we're going to see a significant increase or whether it's going to settle closer to the level that had been anticipated. But again, I think having current and continuously refreshed numbers will give the program more credibility and trust that it's being managed and structured in a way that actually reflects, the situation and the evidence of what's actually happening in our communities with preschoolers. So I want to just thank the team, Jeff, you and team, for getting that refresh and using it on new calculations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones-Dickson, any questions?
Yeah, just deep appreciation for providing this information. No additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, thank you for the updated slides and all the work. I found the analysis you did to be very helpful, so I appreciate that so much. One of my questions, I keep worrying, as I do, about some assumptions that may not play out. One of the ones that I continue to be very nervous about is the degree to which we have assumed that we could continue to leverage state dollars or federal through the state dollars of both employment-related daycare and preschool promise. And I appreciate that graph because it does show that is a significant drop if we cannot continue to have those funding streams funding pre-K. So this is if there happen to be legislators who watch this at any point, to take resources out of our community that is our community's rightful portion of need would be devastating to this program and is in fact threatening to the existence of this program. I'd love to partner with the state on how our programs work either intertwined or collaboratively to make sure that they that is successful and that we can continue to reach every child. But it's real. There are also a couple of things that come up, and I appreciate being able to see it in a graph, that are really big policy decisions that we have just not made yet, that have some big impacts. One is, do we feel like we need to build a reserve that allows us to not have to make dramatic reductions mid-year if there were to be an economic crisis? Do we want to create that level of continuity for families? Exactly what that is, I think, is still well worth exploring. But I think, our 15%, which is certainly in line with other programs, doesn't quite provide that level of security to get kids through a year. And then I think, implementing true cost of care, although there are, one, that is a policy decision, and then second, how we do that, I think is an important decision. I do strongly support implementing true cost of care. I think that's a covenant we should be making with our providers, especially when we, for most providers, are the sole payer. They do need to be able to be solvent and have some ongoing assurance that is our commitment to them as an operator, is that they are at least meeting cost recovery or reasonable cost recovery. And then I think, one of the things I appreciate about PFA is that not only is access important, quality is important. And there are many ways to measure quality, but certainly the amount of preparation and education that our providers have is one important measurement of quality. And Preschool for All does have a goal around that, that I think we need to seriously talk about how we achieve. I do think there are some areas that we should look at flexibility, but in general, I think it was clearly in the intention of the ballot measure that we invest in quality, and one of that is the education of our teachers. And currently, I don't think we are investing enough to meet that goal. And so, with all of those things combined, that's why I asked Commissioner Singleton to join on her amendment, because I feel that we need to be digging into this and understanding the implications of this. And I don't want to get us in a situation where we are limited.
Thank you, Commissioner Moyer. Denisa?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Commissioner Moyer. Denisa McLean, she, her pronouns, Preschool and Early Learning Division Director. I appreciate all the sentiments that you shared, Commissioner Moyer. I did want to share that the Preschool and Early Learning Division is also currently in process in communication and partnership with Department of Early Learning and Care to somehow pilot a coordinated enrollment, a small pilot of coordinated enrollment that would be supported by Multnomah County and our division to support Preschool Promise and PFA providers to better leverage those seats within our community and help access points for families. So we are in constant conversations. We're in the infancy stages of planning that to uplift it, but hope to have more learnings in the nearest future.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Singleton.
So did you want to do public testimony before I make my motion, or go ahead and make my motion for my amendment?
No, let's hear public testimony first. Thank you. I was opening questions up to Jeff's part of the presentation, and then we're going to go to, so if you don't have any questions to Jeff, Tasia, can we start public testimony, please?
Yes, we have 10 people signed up for public testimony, and we're going to start with Mercedes Elizalde. Mercedes, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to turn on my camera, but it doesn't like it, so you guys won't get to see me. Hello, my name is Mercedes Elizalde. I am the Director of Advocacy at Latino Network, and I'm asking you to stay focused on achieving the outcomes for kids and families. Preschool for All is a revolutionary act, one of perhaps something that shouldn't be so revolutionary, but nonetheless it is. This is a profoundly positive impact on both health and well-being of all of our communities. Ensuring the program's success is an iterative process, but one that should be prioritized. It should be prioritizing stability and quality. We want people to know that they can count on these programs to deliver high quality, safe, and enriching experiences for our tiniest residents. The political noise around this has taken up way too much space in these conversations and has nothing to do with the actual needs of the program. Our inclusion programs do need work. Responses are not always coming when they need to come. This compromises parent and provider trust in the administration of the program. There are ways for providers to be better supported in engaging in early connections and early relationship building to support learning and social emotional growth. These early partnerships pay off through generations of life. The county has started a new pilot outreach program that needs itself to be reviewed and iterated. It needs to include providers. It's a missing component of this pilot, that the county is essentially going it alone with the outreach instead of working with the providers to do that outreach to parents before school starts. And this might increase costs in order to improve that system. You've all already mentioned the true cost of care study showing that the county doesn't necessarily know if all of the requirements it is imposing it is actually able to pay for, or if it does require cross-subsidization for each provider. At Latino Network, we do cross-subsidize in order to make sure our programs meet the quality that we know we are expected to meet. This is an ongoing review of those considerations and those regulations to better support the program. And this should be something that's considered when we're thinking about how to make the program better every year. So please don't take votes to simply ignore data and information for 2 years. Commissioner Singleton and Moyer's amendment is the most reasonable. If you are looking at the numbers and you feel like you do not need to see an increase today, maintain that quality and that program support, fine. But please don't attempt to preempt future commissions from being responsive to your data and information. This board has repeatedly reminded all of us that this tax is volatile, which means you need to monitor what's happening in the trends and take action when needed, not put it away for 2 years and try to forget about it. Please stay focused on keeping the program strong and growing. This is history-making work if you can keep us all together moving towards that excellence and joint success. Thank you for your work.
Next, we have Paulina LaPerry. Paulina, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Portland. We urge you not to delay the automatic tax increase funding Preschool for All that is set to take effect next year. We are concerned that doing so would put the program on less stable footing. The financial models recently presented to all of you illustrated the risk that PFA would run if there were an economic downturn in combination with other factors. It's possible that some of the assumptions that went into enrollment projections would change in the future, Fewer families with children might move away from Multnomah County, knowing that many options for free, high-quality preschool are available to them. An ideal scenario is one where participation is higher than projected, and spending includes not only the true cost of care, but also vital priorities like professional development and an increased pool of substitute teachers. Yet that scenario risks putting the program in the red in just a couple of years if a recession occurs. PFA has delivered on its promise of giving thousands of young learners access to high-quality preschool programs. Participating families and providers alike have been very satisfied with their experience. Please avoid delaying the tax increase. Help ensure that PFA reaches its full potential, maintaining its high quality while growing to serve all eligible Multnomah County families. Thank you.
Next, we have Mary King. Mary, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Oh, Mary, you just remuted. You were off mute for a second and then you remuted yourself. So there you go.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mary King, Professor of Economics Emerita at Portland State. I served on the Preschool for All Technical Advisory Group, voting no on the report. 3 big points. 1, in terms of bang for the buck, public investments in universal preschool are by far the best economic development strategy we have, though not discussed in the TAG report. 2, the TAG report contains no plausible worst-case fiscal scenario needed for responsible decision-making, and I really appreciate Commissioner Moyer for asking for that kind of a forecast. And 3, there are good reasons to believe that Preschool for All should be spending more now and in the future to deliver the high-quality universal program expected by voters. So first, economic development is best measured by rising standards of living, more income per person, especially at the bottom and the middle. An economic development expert, Timothy Bartik, has shown that at the metro level, universal preschool is twice as effective at raising incomes as the best targeted business incentives. Second, the TAG report, as I said, includes no plausible worst-case fiscal scenario. We've heard the county economist report that preschool tax revenues may fall by 40%, nearly half from one year to the next. That would have happened twice in the 20 recent years reviewed by the State Revenue Office. It could happen again any time if the possible AI bubble in the stock market pops, as market watchers fear. That's how 2008 started, with a bubble on Wall Street. Taxable investment incomes would be hit hard, as in 2008. Taxing at the top combats high and growing economic inequalities exacerbated by rounds of federal tax cuts at the top, but high incomes fluctuate unpredictably and widely. We need a stronger reserve policy, setting aside at least 9 to 12 months of operating costs to maintain service levels over a bad year or two. Current county reserve policies appear created for property taxes, which are stable, predictable, and regressive, passed on to renters in a tight housing market like ours. Third, future costs were underestimated or left out in the TAG forecast. The True Cost of Care study has begun to identify some, but others may be overlooked. It's good to hear discussions at the board of inclusion costs and higher teacher pay, needed to attract and retain the skilled, experienced workforce that quality depends on. It's also likely that participation rates will be higher, especially with more outreach than the county's been able to do, and fewer families may leave the county after their children are born. Providers and teachers must be paid more, shift differentials to extend hours to weekends, early morning, and evening needed by many families. And we should be following through on the plan for shared services for the program's small business providers, such as insurance, substitutes, payroll, and meals. So finally, I think there's no call to plan ways to cut Preschool for All. It's a national model, rolling out well, creating a strong program from a skeletal childcare system with continuous evaluation and improvement built into its design. Thank you.
Next, we have Mike Lazito. Mike, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Michael Ozito, and I'm a preschool for all educator speaking today in my personal capacity. I'm asking you not to delay the preschool for all tax increase again. I understand the questions about empty seats and whether the original projections were too high. Those are fair questions, but I don't think the answer is to delay the tax increase that voters already approved. Preschool for all is still being built, but the workforce needs aren't somewhere down the road, they're here now. We need wages that make this a career. We need good health care that doesn't eat away at those wages, because if you're making the preschool for all wage floor, but paying hundreds of dollars a month for health care, those wage floors start to become pretty irrelevant. We also need enough staffing to give kids the support they need. And this is why teachers need to be part of these decisions. Consultants and economists can tell you a lot, but there are things they might not know unless they ask us. Not a single current frontline teacher was on the TAG or any of the other 5 preschool for all committees the chair convened. This entire presentation is missing crucial information and feedback. A classroom can technically meet the legal ratio with one teacher, while one teacher spends much of the day giving one-on-one support for a child who needs it. That child deserves that support. But now the rest of the classrooms essentially has one less teacher. And what happens when it's 2 kids that need the support or more? The ratio works on paper. That doesn't mean it works in the classroom. That's the kind of thing this investment needs to address. We can keep improving preschool for all while we build it. If projections need to change them. If there are concerns about how some providers are using preschool for all money, that's what oversight is for. But don't make teachers the adjustment. Most of us are at will employees. We don't have guarantees about next year. We don't even have guarantees about tomorrow. So please don't put teachers in a position where we're the ones expected to play catch up because we didn't invest enough in the workforce and in the classrooms now. Because we know what playing catch up looks like. It means teachers doing more with less until somebody figures out how to fix it. We shouldn't wait until preschool for all grows and then realize we need more staffing, better benefits, and more support all along. Put that investment into teachers and classrooms now. We care about the kids. We want to give them the best preschool experience we can. Investing in the workforce is investing in them. Providers partnered with the county, educators partnered with the county. Now the county needs to do its part. And I want to add one more thing before listening to the discussion this morning. You've talked about making taxpayers whole when they've paid more into the preschool for all than they should have. I support that, but I'm asking you to apply that same principle to educators. There's evidence that preschool for all educators have been paid below the required wage floor in some cases. When that happens, those workers should be identified and made whole through a retroactive pay. If we can go back and correct an overpayment by the taxpayer, we should also be able to go back and correct an underpayment to a teacher. Don't delay the preschool for all tax increase again, and bring frontline teachers into the decisions about how we build this program. Thank you.
Next is Candace Williams. Candace, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My Mac is hating the video. I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Candace Williams. I use she, her pronouns. Good morning, Chair Vega Peterson and Commissioners Moyer, Singleton, Brim Edwards, and Jones-Dixon. I am a parent, a 4th-generation member of the historic Albina community, a former general and special education teacher, the executive director of For All Families Oregon, and a member of the Preschool for All Advisory Committee. As voters told you in 2020, Preschool for All benefits all families, all businesses, and all of Multnomah County. It is a national model. Not only is it essential for our kids' educational foundation, it reduces financial stress for parents, stimulates the local economy, increases workforce participation, and boosts the wages of early educators. It's a part of what makes our county special. The board wants clarity before committing to funding decisions, so do we. We're asking for the same thing. A clear, data-driven picture of the true cost of inclusive care so decisions are made on real numbers based on actual child and provider needs. Though at current population estimates, the program won't go into the red in the coming year with the reserves we have, that shouldn't be mistaken for room to slow down progress toward this high-quality program's trajectory toward truly inclusive universality. Providers and teachers are telling us directly that they need more inclusion supports and professional development. And at the same time, state and federal threats to programs like ERDC and Head Start are shrinking publicly funded seats elsewhere. Please don't double down on these threats to families in our county. Families, providers, and early educators love and depend on Preschool for All. We need to set it up to succeed for all of our county's kids. As the program grows toward the promise made to voters, funding needs to keep pace, not lag 2 years behind. The funding needs to recognize the needs of our most vulnerable children and our dedicated workforce's development. A 2-year delay to the scheduled tax increase locks in a decision before we know if it's the right call, before we know what our kids and families will truly need to be truly inclusive of all kids across spectrums of need, and puts us right back in this conversation in 2 years anyway. I'd like to ask the board to consider a more nimble mechanism, one that lets funding adjust as real costs and universal enrollment across levels of kids and provider needs become clear. Our children cannot vote. They cannot advocate for themselves in this space. Please don't let a lack of information or a lack of understanding of true inclusion costs become a reason to underfund them today. I and the community voices that I represent urge the board to vote no on this 2-year delay. Thank you.
Next, we have Abby Parnell. Abby, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, my camera is also not working. Hello, Chair Vega Peterson and members of the Commission. Thank you for hearing me today. My name is Abby Parnell, and I am the Portland Metro Community Organizer with For All Families Oregon. Previous to that, I was a family navigator for the Preschool for All program with Self Enhancement, Inc. I want to share with you the direct impact that this program had on my families during my time in that role. I had families who were struggling to make ends meet and could not afford the childcare necessary to seek employment. That meant that they were stuck on TANF, on SNAP, and in subsidized housing. They could not afford to work because they could not afford childcare. The biggest barrier to employment that I witnessed was lack of access to childcare. If we want a thriving economy, a thriving community, and more people able to support themselves, we need to give them access to childcare. I had another family who was experiencing homelessness, living in a van and reliant on our assistance programs for things like food and basic necessities. Preschool for All gave the young child in that family time inside a building, away from the sweltering heat and out of the cold. Let me reiterate, preschool was the only time that a young child got to be indoors. Preschool for All gave that child a safe place to be during the day. We urge the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners to vote no on the 2-year delay. If the board feels a delay is necessary, please limit it to 1 year so we can return with real cost data before deciding anything further. This is a vital program that needs expansion, not delays. Teachers in this program deserve a living wage, children deserve a safe place to learn and grow, and Preschool for All deserves to flourish and to continue supporting our most vulnerable population, our children. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Ty Marshall. Ty, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Sorry, took a minute with the tech. I apologize. I'm in the quietest corner I could find. It's the first day back at school for Portland teachers. Thank you for your time, everyone. My name is Ty Marshall. I'm the parent of a 4-year-old and a teacher in Portland Public Schools and the legislative co-chair of the Portland Association of Teachers. My family has benefited incredibly from Preschool for All. My child and I were able to move out of my parents' basement where we lived following a divorce, get our own home and our sense of stability back. And I'm here to advocate for us to keep Preschool for All's tax structure as the voters intended, not delay the tax increase for all the future families whose lives will be changed. First off, the TAG's final report talks about a 77% participation rate for families in Preschool for All. Other cities with similar programs have a 90% participation rate. To keep Preschool for All thriving, we need to plan on continuing to have a high rate of participation. My understanding is it's at 97% currently. And so my concern is, why are we making financial decisions assuming that this life-changing program loses participants? Your constituents voted for Preschool for All to reach full universality by 2030, not 77%. And the second, you all have been discussing the true cost of care, and there's a gap between what the county reimburses of between $1,000 and $2,000, which to my limited understanding means our projected budgets need to be bigger. In conversations we've had with some of you through my union work, folks have said they need more data, but the data shows that the true cost is higher than what the county is currently reimbursing. My kid's own first daycare provider was an in-home provider, small business run by a woman of color, and she told me that she supports inclusion, but she had to hire more staff to make it possible. Inclusion is a part of the commitment of Preschool for All as it was voted for. And finally, just to compound my concerns, your TAG final report says the program remains solvent in most scenarios except a recession, which would put Preschool for All in the red in 2028. It looks like you heard that from Mr. Renfro as well. If your concern as elected officials is cutting taxes, whose taxes will you cut? Why not cut the tax breaks to Phil Knight instead of cutting the education of our county's preschoolers? Why cut voters' confidence in our elected governments to provide essential services that keep families in Portland? Please keep our trust and don't delay this tax increase. Thank you.
Next up, we have Michelle Yamamoto. Michelle, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, Chair Vega Peterson and members of the Commission. Thank you for your time today. My name is Michelle Yamamoto. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the child care organizer at Apano Action Fund. We are a culturally specific organization that unites Asians and Pacific Islanders to build power, develop leaders, and advance equity through organizing, advocacy, community development, and cultural work. Preschool for All was funded with a plan that included a scheduled tax increase so funding could keep pace as more children enroll. That increase has already been delayed once, and delaying it again by 2 more years locks the county into less funding before the assessment of what the program actually costs is finished. That's too big a decision to make without the data behind it. As an advocate, I understand the immense financial burden of childcare and how programs like Preschool for All can be life-changing for families. Without Preschool for All, the cost of care for one child can be around $1,500 a month, and for some families that's equivalent to the cost of rent. I've also seen firsthand how Preschool for All funding has encouraged Apano community members to enter the childcare workforce and create more culturally specific and bilingual programs. In Oregon, where nearly all of our counties are designated childcare deserts, expanding access to high-quality preschool programs is crucial for our families. Childcare providers and preschool providers are the bedrock of the broader workforce, and yet they are chronically overlooked and underpaid. Preschool for All not only allows providers to earn a living wage, but to dream bigger, get excited about new teachers and more families, and create curricula that will allow our children to grow and thrive. I urge you to vote no on the 2-year delay, or at minimum to limit any delay to 1 year so the board can revisit this with better cost data before locking in a longer gap. Families and providers need funding certainty, and the program needs a plan that keeps pace with real costs as it grows towards the promises made to voters in 2020. Thank you.
Next up, we have Nathan Ong Norris. Nathan, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair. My name is Nathan Ong Norris. I'm running for Multnomah County Commissioner in District 2. In 2020, Multnomah County voters approved Preschool for All, along with a scheduled tax increase of 0.8% to help the program grow toward universality. This vote was highly favorable with 64% of votes. That tax increase was already delayed a year, from 2026 to 2027. Now, commissioners are considering delaying it again. This is before the county has the genuine information we need to project what Preschool for All will cost at full universal enrollment. All while inflation and the cost of living have climbed sharply since Preschool for All was first passed. Locking in a delay now means committing to less funding, just as more families, teachers, and providers are counting on the Preschool for All program to grow. Preschool for All is one of the best programs this county offers, and we, the voters, have already agreed that it is worthy. It is not preschool for most or many. It is for every child in Multnomah County. I urge you, Commissioners, Chair, to hear the mandate of the people. Fund this program as it was laid out by our voters. Thank you.
Next up, we have Abigail Smock. I don't see that she joined the meeting. So I think our last person is Teresa Combs Fisher. Teresa, you can unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Teresa, she, her pronouns, and I live in Portland. I strongly oppose the scheduled tax increase. The county should follow the recommendation to delay it. The tax itself should also be reevaluated for necessity and considered for reduction or future elimination in its current revenue collecting form. My concern is not with the importance of preschool access, but increasing taxes when the program's financial and enrollment data do not prove that more revenue is needed. The unspent fund balance has grown from approximately $169 million in fiscal year 22 to about $610 million today, which is a 261% increase. At the same time, the estimated number of seats needed for universal access has fallen to 8,000 from the original projected 12,000. The growth in enrollment lags behind growth in tax collections and available funding. In the 24-25 school year, the county reported serving around 2,200 children, and the next year capacity increased to 3,800. Though I have not yet found a final published figure showing how many of those seats were actually filled. This year, capacity expanded to 7,100 seats, but the initial application period produced only about 6,000, and seats remained available afterward. This also doesn't mean all 6,000 students accepted and were placed. While the county has rapidly increased the number of seats it is prepared to fund, enrollment does not match and justify a fund balance that has rocketed past more than $500 million. Before increasing the tax again, the county should first prove that this expanded capacity is actually being utilized and more revenue is critical before increasing the tax yet again. This should be an opportunity for taxpayer relief, not an automatic rate increase. The income thresholds also need reevaluation, especially for this high cost of living area with substantial state and local taxes. We are second in the country for tax burden. Only New York City is higher, but their high income threshold is $1 million. Inflation has eroded our current PFA thresholds, and since 2020, the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that consumer prices have risen about 26%. And if the single filer threshold had kept pace with inflation, that threshold should now be $158,000, not $125,000. An example, a taxpayer who's earned $150,000 since 2020 has lost almost a quarter of their purchasing power. Yet if the tax increase takes effect, their annual PFA obligation would rise from $375 to about $575, an increase of more than 53%. In a time where we are all struggling to pay bills each month, every dollar counts. We are in economically dire times, and while PFA is important, there are many other social programs that serve many more people with more immediate needs that we should prioritize. The county should also consider the risk of placing higher taxes on a mobile tax base, particularly when research suggests that many are migrating out of the county to avoid increasing costs and taxes. So why should taxpayers pay more into an overly funded program that has exceeded the revenue expectations, needs substantially fewer seats, and can currently remain financially sustainable without the increase? I ask that you do not allow the increase to take effect in 2027, as this program has financially outperformed expectations. Taxpayers should finally benefit from that success through restraint. Thank you.
That's all for public testimony.
Thank you so much, Tasia. Thanks to everyone who testified on this today and over the last several months where we've been having this conversation. Okay, Commissioner Singleton, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion to what I now also understand as a friendly amendment to change the delay in the tax to 1 year.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Singleton and a second by Commissioner Moyer. Commissioner Singleton, would you like to describe your amendment?
Yes. So this amendment will change the date in a couple of places, so I'll read those out. I know folks also have, the amendment was posted, so there are, hopefully you have a copy in front of you. So it would change in 4 under findings. I would like the amendment January 1, 2029 to change to January 1, 2028. In A, I would like to amend January 1st, 2027 to January 1st, 2028. And in D, same amendment from January 2027 to January 1st, 2028. This is really, I think, reflective of a lot of what we heard in public testimony today. And I think you all have heard from me around inclusion cost and really the true cost of care, being able to do the work to have that in front of us. Additionally, I think Commissioner Moyer said earlier, we need to be looking at reserves, and that's something that I would like the board to do some work on. So a 1-year delay would allow us to do that work so we can come back and make a more informed decision on the increase. I think generally that this still allows us to acknowledge what we saw from Jeff's slides today, but also be responsive to what we're hearing from teachers. I also want to uplift that I think it's really critical that we find a way to have frontline teachers be included in these conversations as we move forward on this work in the coming year. So I'll pause there for any questions. Or Commissioner Moyer, anything you want to add?
I'll be brief because I totally agree, and I appreciate Commissioner Singleton drafting this and allowing me to sign on.
All right, thank you. So do we have any questions for Commissioner Singleton around the amendment? Commissioner Brim Edwards?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones-Dixon?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. I had a couple questions, but I don't know that they're for you, Commissioner Singleton. I just want to clarify with Eric. So in moving the potential tax increase up to January 1st of 2028, the board would need to take action on if the board decided to delay the increase more or make any other changes to the preschool for all ordinance. Those would need to be made by the end of August of 2027 in order to be able to make sure those are enacted properly with the City of Portland and the other partners we have.
Yes, Chair. The preference, I mean, in terms of, I've communicated this in past meetings, and maybe just a refresher is, the City of Portland, as our administrator, our Preschool for All tax, does a lot of work in the fall period around revising forms, revising communication, scheduling time with CPAs, payroll providers around updates related to the taxes for the upcoming cycle. And so ideally, if we're making a rate change, that we would have that done by the end of August, so that can be incorporated in terms of their planning. So yes, Chair, and thank you for raising that.
Okay, great. I just wanted to set the time frame for that, just so I won't be here, so the board and the next chair understand kind of what that timeline looks like of that work. And I think similarly for the tag, right? The tag right now has, I mean, and this is in the original ordinance and the original measure that was passed, that the tag has to report out to a recommendation to the board by January 1st, 2028. But obviously that's when the tax increase would be effect. So any recommendation we would want from the tag to the board would probably need to come, by August as well, which means like convening that tag and bringing it together would probably be one of the like first things that the new incoming chair could bring in, or I'm happy to start working with the board on that process of convening a tag that would, need to provide a recommendation to the board. So I think my question is like, to those of you on the commission, what would a tag recommendation, which is currently, part of the ordinance that is or the ordinance changes that are being passed, what does that look like to you in terms of when you would like to see that recommendation come through from a newly convened tag? Commissioner Singleton?
Thank you, Chair. I think a similar timeline of getting this work together. I think we have the modeling. I think there's some time that the inclusion pilot needs before we'll have that data. So I would want to work with the department to understand as we're doing some of this implementation, and Jeff, when you think we've got some solid numbers to really dive into that conversation and align some of those timelines, but I definitely would want it to be before the board could embark on some new work sessions to talk about some of those different financing pieces. So I think there's a whole work plan that likely needs to be put together here and aligning a couple of different moving pieces.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Jeff, do you have any thoughts on what the tag, what the tag process could look like?
Yeah, I agree that we should put together a whole work plan, because I think we'd identified very early on in the tag process this last time that incorporating updated population estimates was going to be a big part of this, and we wanted to be doing that along with all of the other work that we were doing. So we brought in like a really well-respected demographer to help us through the process. So I think as early as we can identify kind of what we think the issues that the tag might want to spend some time on, and I'm hearing all of the discussion around specific areas of programmatic expense, I think that's going to help us figure out who we should be recruiting. And then even if I think generally with these things, it's helpful to hire third party to do some of the analysis at least. So thinking about like who we might want to hire as well. And the earlier we can get some of that procurement and recruitment stuff started, the better, obviously. So yeah, I think I'm not sure if it's me or if it's me in combination with some other people, kind of getting some stuff on paper that we can circulate and get some feedback on, and then we can get the process going.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to want to move forward quickly on a tag when one of the barriers to what the tag could really dig into was the unanswered policy questions. And I think in order for a tag to actually be able to recommend some things, we need to grapple with what we want to do as the policymakers regarding issues like true cost of care, inclusion, access to highly trained teachers and helping teachers accomplish that, because it's going to wildly impact the data that they look at. And I don't want to repeat the work that was already done. It was very helpful. But unless we are giving them new information, I'm not really sure what we would get out of it. So that's my 2 cents, is that let us, hopefully if this passes, and we need to maybe move up our timeline on how we were thinking of tackling some of those issues. I think for the tag to have anything to talk about that is different than what they already talked about, we will need to have a clearer policy direction on some of these key issues. And so that's my 2 cents on a work plan moving forward.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. Commissioner Moyer, Commissioner Singleton, and then Commissioner Brim Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that is really in line with what I was saying about a work plan. So Jeff, I don't think it's just you on creating a work plan. We need the programmatic piece as well. I'd like to see in that work plan the engagement with existing advisory groups too. And additionally, some engagement with frontline teachers. So I think there's, if we can get something that we can then work on together as a board, and I think Commissioner Moyer, it makes sense for us to also think about where we might want to put specific work sessions in so that we have a lot, like essentially an overall PFA work plan for the coming year that includes the tag, but it isn't the tag not happening before these other pieces, and we can get the sequencing right this time.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Brim Edwards and then Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah. So Commissioner Moyer and I brought forward the resolution that was adopted by the commission that requires the gap analysis and the creation of a roadmap to get to universal preschool. And from my perspective, I think taking that, the refresh population estimates that we would have next year. I think, again, it's just a good practice to continue to refresh those. My understanding is the other numbers like reach back to 2019, so continuing to refresh that at the start of sort of every fiscal year, and feeding that into the roadmap. But I also think it would be really important to have that data on what we're seeing in terms of how many seats are actually being utilized of the ones that are available, and continuing, again, having a very much a live model that we're continuing to feed information into. And, you know, there is going to be, we're going to probably need to make decisions on a regular basis with the best information we have, but I think we shouldn't get stuck on information from 5 years ago or, you know, even 2 years ago, but continue to refresh it and make the best decisions we can. So I would be supportive of, you know, using our roadmap to get to universal preschool, and then, you know, what's the information, the most current information we have, and continue to sort of flood that into the structure and into our plans to get our roadmap to get to universal preschool. So I would definitely think we should have work done this next summer, both with the commission, but also our advisory councils.
Okay, that's great. Yep, and that sounds good. I know that there is a lot of work that PEL has on their place for deliverables in the next year. Gap analysis, inclusion pilot, low enrollment policy development, behavioral health partnership with the Bowman Institute, revising projections in the delivery model, budget note responses, City of Portland permitting partnership, and then, you know, an updated financial modeling based on any, you know, of these policy changes. So lots of work that the PEL has. And so I think we definitely need time for them to do that work and incorporate that in the information that this board has then to make decisions. And then I just note that because the tag is something that's required by the ordinance to exist, right, and to provide a recommendation, and that's currently being carried through in both the resolution and the amendment today. So it sounds like the timing of that can wait in terms of the convening piece, but the proposal of like the work plan development that can be a conversation that can start anytime. Okay, great. Any other questions around the amendment? All right, Tasha, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, we can. Commissioner Brim Edwards.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones-Dickson.
Yes.
Commissioner Moyer.
Yes.
Commissioner Singleton.
Yes.
Chair Baker-Peterson.
Yes, the amendment passes. So now we return to discussion on the ordinance as amended. Any further discussion on the underlying ordinance? Commissioner Singleton.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to appreciate all the work that has gone into getting us here today. It's not just our county staff, but also all of the providers, the families, all of the folks who have continued to show up and be a part of the advisory structure of this. I really do take to heart what we heard from frontline teachers and not having a seat on any existing advisory group. And so I do think that it's important for us to kind of revisit a little bit some of that in the coming year before we embark on this, to make sure we have full voice and get the best information that we need to make these decisions. So I'm really happy to vote yes today, but did want to take a moment to thank people who are giving a lot of time to this and are not county employees, as well as the county employees who I know are giving a lot of time to this. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other closing comments? Okay. Oh, Commissioner Moyer.
Families, there are still PFA slots. Please sign up. If you thought you would not be prioritized, that process has happened, and now it is largely a first come, first serve. please take advantage of this. We absolutely want to fill these seats and have wonderful classrooms waiting for your little ones.
Great, always a good reminder, Commissioner Moyer. I will say I was taking my son to get his back to school haircut this weekend at a barber shop in Northwest Portland, and right in the window of the barber shop was a PFA flyer from Friendly House talking about the seats that they had available. So I love to see our providers really putting the word out there about the opportunities that families have to take advantage of Preschool for All. It's really about like switching the mindset from like, we don't have enough seats to like, yes, we have grown this program and it's matured and we want people to take advantage of it. So thank you for that. Okay, I will just say that I really appreciate all of the work that's gone into this process over the last several months. You know, I think that this vote today to delay is one that we can do with confidence that it doesn't do anything to undermine the program. It gives the county the space to really dig into some of these issues. Preschool for All continues to be one of the accomplishments that I am most proud of during my career in public service. And I think that this reflects that we're being fiscally responsible while preserving the option to raise the tax in the future if economic forecast changes or programmatic needs changes, and that we're committed to doing the work to make sure that we have that clarity in the actions that we state today. And most especially, I think that we continue to meet our goal of providing high quality preschool to every child in Multnomah County. So really, I'm glad and proud of the work of this board, and really am confident that this proposal is in the best interest of our program and our community. So thank you. All right, Tasha, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Jones-Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Moyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Singleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Brim Edwards?
Yes.
Chair Vega-Peterson?
Yes. The first reading is approved as amended, and the second reading is scheduled for August 27th. All right, since we had the change in order today, that brings us to the end of our agenda. This is the time when we have for comment on non-agenda items. So I'll open it up to commissioners to see if folks have anything to share. Commissioner Singleton.
I really did wait. I counted till 5, but still nobody beat me with the hand. So thank you, Chair. Just a couple of items. I just, as always, want to share some data regarding immigration enforcement in Oregon. As of August 14th, 43 people have been detained. 15% of those were women, which is a higher percentage than previous months. In July, there were a total of 70 people detained. And if this rate continues, August is set to match or exceed July. Additionally, the Trump administration finalized a new healthcare policy that has been in the works for months. No federal dollars can be used to pay for gender-affirming care for children covered by Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Plan. This is a devastating blow to families, and trans youth are clearly the target, but gender-affirming care is a much more broad category of life-saving prescriptions and therapies. It truly breaks my heart to know that somebody like my nibbling would not be able to get care today that they were able to get at the time that they were younger. I also wanted to uplift that the U.S. Department of Agriculture this week rescinded the roadless rule. This rescission would open up millions of acres of national forest across the country to the logging, new roads, and other uses. If this rule moves forward, Oregon stands to lose almost 2 million acres of protections and the clean water and natural areas that we all like to enjoy. There is a 30-day comment period that opens today and closes September 21st. So I encourage people who have something to say to participate in that public comment period. A couple of local items. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary celebration of New Columbia. It was really cool to see both the library and health departments present and supporting the community. I also got to spend some time with folks who were original residents when it was the Columbia Villa, like Benjamin Chimuku, and chat with them about the changes in that community that they were able to see with that redevelopment, as well as with some Home Forward staff and residents. Just a really fun day at McCoy Park. I also enjoyed this week, I was able to tour the eviction prevention legal services that we help fund partially here at Multnomah County. The work that they're doing is instrumental in helping people avoid eviction and homelessness. And there's some more work I think we need to do, so I'll bring something forward to talk more about this as a board shortly. But wanted to appreciate the folks for their work and making time to just show me a little bit more detail of what their day-to-day looks like. I also want to take a moment to just acknowledge county employees and thank them for their work. I think I've mentioned last week in our meeting that I'm concerned about morale, and I know that there's a lot of different things that folks are dealing with. So I just wanted to take a minute to appreciate the work that they're doing, that they're still showing up every day for community while also dealing with some challenges of their own because of some of the changes that are happening at the county. I also wanted to uplift an event, a couple of events this weekend. The Community Resource Fair will be at Mount Olivet Baptist Church from 10 a.m. to noon. This is a resource fair that will have back to school supplies, haircuts and braids, diabetes screenings. There'll be groceries. There'll also be fun things like a bouncy castle, food and drinks, some fresh produce, lots of different vendors. And raffle prizes as well. So please come out to that Community Resource Fair on Saturday, August 22nd from 10 to noon at Mount Olivet Baptist Church. And then, of course, as a reminder, still Black Business Month. So please hop in and make sure that you're following all of the awesome businesses that we're highlighting in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones-Dickson and then Commissioner Brim Edwards.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chair. And per usual, thank you, Commissioner Singleton, gold standard. Just want to give a shout out to the Gresham Barlow School District for their clothing co-op that they hosted yesterday. They provided free back-to-school clothing and shoes for the community. And today, the Metropolitan Family Service Community Schools and Centennial School District, they're hosting their 4th annual Back-to-School in the Hood event. It's a free event for the community where they're providing free school supplies, food, activities, and family resources, and just program information at the Victory Outreach Portland Church up from 162nd and Stark. Also, there's a fun water event that's happening this afternoon at the Arts Plaza. It's the police department versus the fire department, and all are invited. They're providing water guns and water balloons and all that great stuff. Actually, it's happening now up until 4 p.m. this afternoon. Be there or be square. And then finally, there's the Rock the Block event that's happening this weekend at the downtown Rockwood Plaza from 11 to 4 p.m. And then lastly, I don't think I mentioned this last week, we participated in the Multnomah County Farm Bureau tour, which was pretty dope to see all the things that are happening around ag. Got an opportunity to spend time with some of my colleagues and staff, and then just seeing what the local folks are doing around agritourism and just and just food that's being distributed throughout the United States of America on Sophie's Island. So that's all we got this week.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones-Dickson. That sounds great. Commissioner Brim Edwards and then Commissioner Moyer.
Thank you. Yeah, that farm tour was great. It's a perfect way to send the summer. And I got to tell you, Marionberry ice cream with Oregon Marionberries is hard to beat. Also, I just want to give a shout out to the DCA, the library staff, and specifically the library staff at the Belmont Library. This weekend, there was an amazing reopening of the Belmont Library. Thank you, Chair, for being there. And I've just got to say, this is my home library. And I think, while it was the last library in the Capitol Bond, as I said on Saturday, it was well worth the wait. An hour and a half after the library had been officially opened, there was still a long line outside waiting to get in because of just the capacity limits within the library. I understand people who went on Sunday said the same thing was true, that the library is full, so people had to wait in line. And that tells me that the Multnomah County really hit it out of the park with this renovation. Thanking my community members, 3,000 of them who weighed in on what they wanted to see in the library. And, you know, they showed up for it. It has all the amazing things that many of the other new libraries have. And it has some things that are just a nod to the Southeast community that loves that library. I also really want to appreciate that the county paid tribute to Jeannie Diaz, a beloved youth librarian who we tragically lost a couple years ago, and that her spirit that so much filled the library when she was a youth librarian is still there through her artwork and other ways in which the county found a way to really honor her service to that community. So thanks to everyone who made that a great event. The other thing I want to raise is I'm going to go back to the Moda Center conversation we had, a long work session we had the other day, and just express my concern about two items. One, while the commission voted that there would be an allocation of $101 million, it did not specify where those funds would come from. And in fact, the resolution says, request the CFO to return to the board with a financing plan that prioritizes the uses of motor vehicle rental tax, surcharge, and other tourism taxes, and excludes the business income tax revenues and ongoing general fund. I'm concerned that this is going to be delayed till later in September. You know, I think it's not responsible to go to the negotiating table with the higher amount until we've actually had that discussion and we know we actually could deliver it. So I don't think any sort of negotiation should be happening until we hear how how those funds could be raised, because I think it would be very much a stretch for the county to get there, as I mentioned the other day in the meeting. The second item that I wanted to raise from that resolution is one of the amendments that Commissioner Moyer and I brought was that the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners resolves to establish a policy that negotiations be led at the operational level on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. The Chief Operating Officer, with the assistance of the consultant approved by the board, is requested to lead these negotiations. And I'm concerned that, frankly, this portion of the resolution and the Commission's direction is being ignored. There's been a negotiation team set up, not by the COO, and there hasn't been consultation with the Commission in a public forum, because we obviously can't have consultation in private, but there hasn't been consultation with the Commission on the establishment of the negotiations, and there has not been a public discussion and approval of the consultant that was hired unilaterally by the chair. And I continue to have, I requested information. The information I requested had not been provided to the county prior to the contracting with the consultant. And the most recent information that I reviewed still is very thin on other business interests and potential conflicts that the consultant that the chair has hired with the commission. And I don't think these conversations should be happening in private. And I also firmly believe that if the commission unanimously approves something, that county should be following the commission's direction, because that's how it's supposed to work. That this county should be following federal law, state law, our county ordinances, which are our laws, and also direction that's provided in a public forum and done legally and with the approval of the commission, that those directions should be followed. So I just want to state my ongoing concern about that and look forward to us having a public discussion about those topics.
Thanks, Commissioner. I just want to respond briefly. So there has been a APR submitted to have the conversation around the financial funding approach for the MODA Center in September 15th. I think that, to my knowledge, also tracks with how the city is having their conversations about their financing. The city has already started engaging in negotiations with the Blazers, so those are ongoing, and we've continued to have conversations with the city from our terms that this board adopted. There are weekly updates to the board scheduled around how the negotiations are going in executive session. That is the place where we have conversations about negotiations because of the confidential natures and of a negotiation when you're negotiating with an entity. So those have been scheduled, and you are also welcome, obviously, to meet with the negotiator or any other folks at the county on this, and I encourage you to take advantage of this. Yeah, and I think that and this work is being led out of the CO's office, but it's been made very clear to our negotiator, the CO, everything that this board needs to not just be informed but consulted as the negotiations move forward, which is why we have the weekly executive session scheduled.
I just have to respond because that is not responsive to the resolution and the direction provided by the commission. And it doesn't answer the question about the conflicts or the hiring. And it's my understanding that you appointed the people, you told me that you appointed the people to the negotiating team, not the COO. And that does not align with the resolution that said this is going to be, at the direction of the commission and led by the COO. So I just want to note that, and I don't think so. Yes, we can use executive sessions for a discussion about the negotiations, but that's not a substitute for having a public conversation about actually what the commission approved. And I did know that there was a September discussion about the revenue. Again, I don't think it's responsible to go to the table representing that there's $101 million potentially when it hasn't been identified. And frankly, I don't think the city is an example to follow. First of all, they have a lot more other revenue sources, but they're also not, we shouldn't say just because the city is doing that that's a responsible way to proceed. And I'm quite concerned about during the conversations we had, I did not vote for the higher number because I'm concerned about how we're going to get there, and so kicking the can down the road on how we're going to get there at the same time actively saying that we have that money, I think is not a responsible position to take.
Thank you. I am totally open to having conversations about what this board wants the negotiating team to look like. I've had conversations individually with commissioners about the idea of having a commissioner on the negotiating team. So really glad to have that conversation. I want to make sure that we have a team in place to start those conversations because it's, this is a really important piece of business for the county and for our community, but totally open to what this, what this board would like to see.
But the resolution says that that's going to be the COO. So why would you be appointing the team, or why would we be having the conversation with you? It's contrary to, I don't like.
Commissioner, some of these decisions were made before the resolution was passed. So that there was just work that was already happening before the resolution was passed. Now that the resolution is passed, I am, again, I've already had conversations with some commissioners, happy to talk more about this, but just understand like there was some timing here.
And everybody was aware that we had posted our amendment to that effect. We publicly posted all our amendments early, so it was no surprise. So when behind the scenes a bunch of activity was taking place publicly, we had posted the intention of what we plan to bring forward to the board. So I'll just leave it at that.
Great. Commissioner Moyer.
Yes.
I wanted to just bring something up because it is very dominant in the news right now. I'm not going to talk about the court case, but I am going to talk about maternal mental health and to let the community know that we do have resources available and that pre and post birth is an extremely vulnerable time for a woman. And it is well documented that there are increased risk factors that can lead to very, very serious symptoms. And therefore, please do not feel stigmatized when needing help. Please listen to mothers and people who have recently given birth about their needs and take them seriously. We also have resources at the county. Please reach out on hotlines and other avenues for assistance. There is absolutely no shame in admitting that you're struggling and you need help. I personally experienced extreme postpartum anxiety and needed to seek professional help and was very lucky to have received that and had my family support to wrap around me. So I wanted to take this opportunity while this is an issue that is before us to let people know that the county does offer resources and can help connect you. And that we want to be there for you. There is no shame in needing help through what is a physically and emotionally intense experience that many women and people who have birthed experience, and that let us understand that this is not anything that is a personal weakness that someone experiences. This is a known side effect to creating and birthing a human being. And there are effective treatments when we take these situations seriously. So look out at new parents, be there for them, take their struggles seriously, so that we don't have tragedies that probably could have been prevented.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that. So I just wanted to touch briefly on two things. One, just in regards to the Belmont Library opening, I cannot say enough how proud I am of the Multnomah County Library Bond team, the Capital Bond team, for delivering on such incredible buildings all across our county. We've delivered successfully on 20 major building projects in just 5 years, on time and on budget. And I know this is, excuse me, had a big impact, not just on the folks who have been part of the Library Capital Bond, but all of the library employees who have been impacted by the openings and closings and changes. And I just want to give a huge thank you to them as well. And then obviously our community who has dealt with their favorite libraries maybe being closed or unavailable or going to a different place to pick up books, and just really excited where we are right now in this whole process with having this final library opening. So that's been great. I also want to give a thank you to our Multnomah County Sheriff's Office River Patrol team. I was able to go out with them, and I encourage other commissioners to learn a little bit about the work that they do and take advantage of their willingness to have us go out there. They patrol over 110 miles of river, the Sandy River, the Columbia River, the Willamette River, even Johnson Creek, and are responsible for the safety on so many of our waterways. And I just really want to appreciate them and the work that they do. All right, so thank you. That concludes today's regular board meeting. The board will meet in executive session today at 12:15 and Tuesday, August 25th at 9:15. Our next public meeting will be the board briefing scheduled for Tuesday, August 25th at 10 a.m. There being no further business, we are adjourned.